It should be. Okay, now I'm recording, I think. So I have some live callers. Giovanni Manfrin, and I want to be a bride of God.
Yes. Yes.
Um, okay, you are okay with it if I make a broadcast and put it on YouTube, right?
Yes. Good.
I am recording this. So you are vegetarian as well, you say. That's nice. I don't, because
Yes, I am.
most people are not vegetarian. And what's your main consideration? Is it why are you vegetarian? If I may ask.
Well, I'm sure you're familiar with the no fap movement, where men are learning not to use prawn and other sort of dirty things and to lose their creative essence. And me and Julian Lee, we fought. We made basically this whole kind of movement about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. We were very active in producing material for male chastity. And I cannot maintain my chastity if I'm eating meat. And I love animals. I think they're my friends. So those are my two motivations. I want to maintain, uh, in the vernacular, I want to maintain no fap, chastity. And number two, I want to be kind to animals that are innocent. I'm not like an extremist about all animals. I just think if an animal is not harming me or invading my space or attacking me, then I really wouldn't want to kill an animal.
I'm making a key for a hotkey for Open Broadcaster software, so I can switch off my own microphone and switch it on with a hotkey, because otherwise I hear the sound double basically. So I have to be able to switch it off. But I think do you think coronavirus could be zoonotic, and are you also vegetarian for health reasons? Do you think it's healthier because it is? Animal fat, especially, and also animal protein, increase people's cancer risk. There's a documentary on Vimeo, What the Health, a must see. Uh, so, yeah, do you understand my question? Perhaps you can answer my question or just say something about vegetarianism while I make a hotkey. I cannot switch on my own microphone, I cannot switch it on and off. So I'm gonna make that hotkey now.
Okay, I don't know if you're asking coronavirus. Who is this?
I'm Ulrich Hoffman, and I was asking if coronavirus, if you think that it's zoonotic, if it's spread via animals, because some people think that it is. They also found it in 58 of the 300 something samples from the wet market, the Wuhan fish market, some call it. So that was definitely present there in the animals as well. So then the question is, could it also spread via seawater, for example? Could it survive in seawater or only in fish or in other animals as well? Pork, perhaps. But you don't know much about that, perhaps. But perhaps you could tell more about vegetarianism and what types of food you like.
I do know a lot about China. I'm a sinologist. I speak fluent Chinese, and I think the Chinese just have, number one, I think Chinese have a lot of bigger problems than any kind of virus, really. And I think the numbers of the deaths are very small for Chinese. And I think the way they eat animals and the way they eat, especially, dead pigs, I think your average Chinese man is definitely full of parasites, and that these parasites are causing cancer, diseases, um, bad stomach ailments, all kinds of other weird things. Chinese mainly have a problem with meat eating, with gambling, and with smoking. I would say those are the really big things they have to address. And coronavirus is maybe more of their strategy of not dealing with their problems. I think they're trying to blame their problems on something very, very minor. And, for example, like 1 million Chinese are dying every year of smoking. So I would think, Chinese should be very concerned about sort of their main killers, the main vices that they have. And one of them is eating these very parasite heavy animals like pigs, like bottom feeding fish, crayfish. Chinese eat a lot of those things. And I think your average Chinese is just full of these parasites like trichinosis, like flatworm, like those things. I think pretty much every Chinese is infected with these parasites. And but yeah, I suppose if people believe in coronavirus or they believe that it's a real threat, then it would come logically that a cause of that would be the Chinese habits of eating. I think it would be logical. It's just probably I'm not favorable of the whole virus theories, virus explanations for disease. I think Chinese are suffering mostly from their own bad habits, and they have a lot of them.
Well, I think that could very well be true. And I think PETA also has, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. I was watching something that I have in a slideshow on with this broadcast that I'm recording now. And I've done a broadcast about it also, that they think that it could be spread via these markets with poor hygiene, and also others, that it can be in the meat, basically several viruses and diseases, and of course vaccines and hormones. So it also takes up to 16 kilograms of grain to produce 1 kilogram of cancer hormone cow meat. So the world hunger problem would be solved if everybody would become vegan. And then there's the sustainability. But I think that meat eating helps with reducing the population in several ways. Also for this reason, that it takes up to 16 kilograms of grain. Okay. And have you been following the coronavirus lately? Perhaps you could talk about whatever you think the world needs to know. Are you in Russia yourself? I haven't found the hotkey yet, so that's why I was hoping perhaps you could you could talk a while I keep on searching for the hotkey.
Okay. Well, if I understand correctly that I can talk, I'm in Italy. I live in the Alps in Italy, in a very beautiful place. And yeah, we basically, I live a very natural life. I'm almost off grid, and it's changed my perspective on things. Like, when I read the media, or I don't believe very many things that the media says. And so, but what PETA is saying is basically true, that the Chinese cannot sustain they cannot sustain any kind of meat diet. I don't think anybody can, but they have 2 billion people almost, and their population is higher than they report it to be, and they have some very serious health problems, health threats, and really the only population in China that's even trying to be vegetarian is the Buddhist population. And some of the Buddhists are trying to be vegans, and they have great restaurants. They make good meals in the temples and things. I think that's a good place to start for Chinese, would be to begin to educate them about karma, educate them about cause and effect, and try to instill in them a kind of a moral sense that would get them to begin to, I don't know if they can have empathy or not, but maybe they could be persuaded. Some of them could be persuaded into having some kind of empathy, which is generally lacking in China. And I lived in China for 16 years, and it was a really wild ride. Obviously, I think I'm really lucky that I survived that long. It's kind of a hellish realm. It's not anywhere near what you would imagine a developed nation would be like. And the biggest difference, I think, is just the whole hygiene problem and just how dirty and disrespectful Chinese are, like in the public places for other people. And at first, it's funny, like if you're a tourist there, if you live there anywhere, from a month to 2 years, we would tend to think what they do is sort of funny or cute, and then after you live there a longer time, you start to realize that it's not funny, that people are getting really sick, that you need to be very careful in China with everything you eat, everything you do. I began to cook all of my meals at home. I tried to buy fresh vegetables, but of course, Chinese use a lot more pesticides, a lot more drugs, everything you can imagine to grow vegetables. They grow their vegetables in raw pig manure as well. So, I mean, there's almost no way to really guarantee your health and safety in China if you live there. And I think they're going to have to correct at least some of their bad habits if they're going to survive. And right now they're in the midst of an economic crisis. There's very few jobs. They're losing a lot of money. Factories are closing. The last year that I was there, which is 2014, that year I saw most of the white people who had companies. I saw most of them leaving China, and I don't know anybody else that's still there, in fact. And so the economy is going way down. And number one is because they've lost contract law. They're not, reliable or honest. They don't have a serious court system anymore. And two, I think it's just so polluted and filthy and disrespectful, and people are so, angry and sad. And, the biggest difference I think between 30 years ago in China and now is the fact that Chinese used to be vegetarians and now they're not. And Chinese think they need meat. They want to eat tons and tons of meat. They need meat 3 meals a day. And fortunately, a lot of that meat is fake. I think they're making it out of chemicals, or they're just using cardboard, or I mean, there's you'll find a bit of everything in China, but I just don't think it's possible to feed their, 1.5 billion, 2 billion people 3 meals of meat every day. It's completely impossible. I don't know how even 1% of the meat on the market is even actual meat. I mean, it really boggles the mind how this kind of consumption could possibly be sustained. And I sure never saw any animals in pastures.
Well, I think that the
It
meat
was a
industry
very,
I think that the meat industry also makes money from this, so they also have an interest they have an interest in spreading misinformation about it, and I call it cadaver eating, basically cadaver eaters. Um,
yeah.
but I am convinced that it's healthier to be vegan as long as people take enough vitamin B12 and eat a balanced diet. So people do have to have enough vitamin B12, otherwise it's unhealthier to be vegan. uh, and they can
Mm-hmm.
become malnutrition. So that's something that I think people that promote vegetarianism also must make clear in the broadcast. If they have a whole hour, 2 hour broadcast, then they can talk about vitamin B12. They can just mention that people need to have food sources with vitamin B12 because that's vitamin many vegetarians and vegans may be lacking. And it's also available in hydrocobalamin. Let's see, hydroxycobalamin. What is it? Methylcobalamin, vegan certified 500 microgram spray B12 by the Advantage or something. It's I can hardly read it. I need my little flashlight. So I haven't found the hotkey yet, but I had already made a hotkey and that's still working, but I can't find where it's located in the long list of open broadcaster software. Pure Advantage is the brand. And it's also in vitamin B12, is also in strawberries and in many other vegan sources. So it is available for vegans as well. So it's a myth that it's not that vegans cannot get B12 from vegan sources. Anyway, I cannot see your camera. I only see I Want to Be a Bride of God's camera. But earlier I did see your camera, and it is nicer for the YouTubers if they can also see you speak, I think. And I'm honored to have you guys in my. I'm honored to have you in my broadcast. Your camera was working great earlier, so then I can switch off the what's it called? Picture show, the open broadcaster picture show. And are you Vedic? Are you Vedic or not?
No, I've studied some Hinduism and Indian medicine just a little bit, and but I don't have Ayurvedic, any kind of diet that's Ayurvedic. I just eat a good deal of what's around here in the.
And did you say you are in Switzerland? Earlier, did you say you are in Switzerland or somewhere else? Can you still hear me?
Mountains. We get especially a good in northern Italy in Alps. No, I didn't. I can hear you. I didn't say I was in Switzerland. That would be nice, but yeah, I'm not in Switzerland.
You are in northern Italy. Your mic was dropping out.
If I change the angle of the reception, that's why I cut off the camera. Yeah, I'll cut off the camera. The YouTubers. I don't have enough signal to send. It should be clearer now. How is this?
Yeah, now I can understand what you're saying. So you are in northern Italy, I think, not in Switzerland. You were saying, or mountains.
Right. Yes.
And in northern Italy, they have made vaccines mandatory. I think I always call them killer vaccines. Is that correct? Do you know anything about it? And in France as well.
Yes. Yeah, it's a terrible problem in Italy, and we have mandatory vaccines, and there are many, many of them. Right now, there are 12 mandatory vaccines, and they're basically creating the next generation of people, very weak, also many autistic, also many retarded that are, development problems, different kinds of problems. And so we know that, one of our current leaders, Salvini, today is very nationalistic, and he speaks that way. But by working for vaccines, he negates a lot of that work. He's saying basically, let's save the Italians, from the invasion problem, but then let's just murder them with vaccines. We have so many vaccines when you could just go across the border to Austria, and there are 0 mandatory vaccines in Austria.
Yes, I've heard about. And there are many people that advocate a population reduction. And my idea about this was that people have the right to physical integrity in reality, so it's illegal to make it mandatory, even if they're not killer vaccines, but the ingredients make clear they're killer vaccines. They cannot be okay. For example, often used example is mercury, thimerosal. They've renamed it, so people don't understand it's mercury. It causes brain neuron degeneration, makes people's brain disappear literally. But
Yes.
for the new killer vaccine, they probably won't put it in there because many people know about the mercury now. So then they'll use other substances, toxins, and they will just rename them. So we'd have to use Google, etc. And if there would be World War, or I call it Kushner-Trump peace plan World War, then it is possible that people have no Google anymore, that the EMP, electromagnetic pulse, or the kill switch would be used and people would be home quarantined, either for the coronavirus or the fallout problem, and that people need storable food and a radiological water filter if they want to survive. Are you prepared in any way? Are you a prepper or not?
Yes, I'm prepared. I could survive off grid here. I have my own water supply, food supply. I would be eating a lot less food if I had suddenly had to go off grid. I would also have no electricity. But other than that, I could survive definitely.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Um, well, I put on
Yeah,
my
without
hoodie.
electricity.
Without electricity?
Without electricity here, we would just have to go to bed, when at sundown, and then I would probably, go down to town to charge my phone every now and then. Um, I think it would be doable. I don't think electricity is totally necessary for survival. I have certain tools that use it, but other than that, I think we could be surviving quite well without electricity. Or if things got really bad, and I had the opportunity, I suppose I could have some other option. Solar does not work here because we don't get enough light in the day. We're kind of inside a small valley in the mountains, and we don't get light for a few months out of the year.
Wow, that's nice.
So I have to.
Really. But I think the main thing people
It's
need
nice.
is a radiological water filter. That people need water almost daily. So people have to have that when there's fallout, any type of nuclear event. Then people need that water filter, and otherwise they're dead in a week or two, basically. And that's what some people are trying to achieve. So I think it's vital to prepare and use the internet to find out all we can, and also to prevent a world war and prevent the spread of coronavirus to the extent that is possible. Are there any cases in Italy? Perhaps you could tell me your take on 2019 nCoV. Now it's called COVID or something. 2019. What do you think about all this coronavirus stuff going on?
Yeah, I think it's just sort of a media thing. I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard of anybody getting sick around here. I imagine the real deaths that are occurring happen after somebody goes to the hospital. So in Italy, I don't think it's a big deal. There's more the political question is, why are sort of Italians being so targeted for, being controlled and being checked for coronavirus when Chinese are left with relatively few restrictions. The Chinese still have their restaurants and things here. I would think people need to focus on more in Italy and on blocking contact with Chinese. That would be a more practical method because people here are generally fairly clean.
Well, I can see here on healthmap.org that we had the first Italian to suffer from coronavirus, Su Tirol News, 7th of February. So that was 4 days ago, but I can check on the other thing, BNO News, if there are any cases internationally, because we've seen only one death internationally. There are now 441 cases internationally, and in China there are currently 45,171 confirmed cases worldwide, including 1,115 fatalities. Oh, that's worldwide, 45,171. In China alone, 44,653, and the 1,113 deaths are all in China, except for one. So there are 1,114 in total, correct? 1,115, so where's the other one then? Hong Kong, total 1. Mainland China, total deaths 1,113, and internationally 1, and that's the case in the Philippines. So I was also wondering, could it be a race-specific bioweapon? I don't know if we're allowed to speculate that on YouTube, but it seems like there might be another reason. So many people think that poor hygiene on the fish markets, etc., may also have played a role in this. But I doubt if it's so much worse in China than in the rest of the world. You think it is worse, but if you compare it to India, isn't India worse perhaps than China?
Absolutely, India is much worse than China. Even it's even more difficult. I was in India several years ago, and it was definitely worse. Which is, I don't know how to describe how bad that is, because China is already pretty bad. No, India is much worse, and I'm sure Indians are going to have to prepare for some pretty serious health problems. And I hear that meat eating is getting very popular in India as well.
Well, I think it's also
that Indians are starting.
that what is getting popular as well. Sorry.
Meat eating. That Indians are also wanting to eat more meat.
Oh, disgusting. I love the vegetarian Indian meal. I think that's the best vegetarian food that exists. Do you like Indian vegetarian meal, or do you have another favorite?
Well, yeah, I love it. No, I love it. Indian food is, the vegetarian meals are really good, very well done. I would just say, yeah, I don't know why the Indians now are starting to eat meat, or losing their vegetarian diet. I don't know how bad that situation, but yeah, I definitely like Indian food. I used to know how to cook it many years ago, and then after living in China, I did not have the correct kitchen. The Chinese kitchen, the style is just so different from everything else. You've got this enormous fire. The lowest setting is like still a firebomb, and then the cookware, everything in China is different. So I just went to a pretty simple diet when I was in China.
Well, I think that the people that want to reduce the global population, that believe in the Al Gore's global warming hoax, paid for by George Soros, that they also may promote veganism and vegetarianism to a certain extent for the environment. And the other question was, what is your favorite vegetarian dish, basically?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess I've never thought about that. Here in northern Italy, we eat a lot of polenta, the sort of cornmeal, and we eat a good deal of that. There's, I think, a pretty strong tradition of vegetarian dishes in Italy, especially more in the south. Um, but I like our standard fare, like beans and garlic and certain things that that we typically eat here. I love. Um, I guess if I had to choose my favorite thing, we let's say we make a vegan pizza with roasted vegetables on top. That would be really good.
Yeah, that sounds nice. Italia, pasta, pasta, the cannelloni, macaroni. Uh, what else? Quattro stagioni. Um, I love Italian food also. Many people love pasta, of course. Um, okay, so yeah, I had the idea about tax revolt, basically, when the government is doing illegal things, such as making vaccination mandatory, infringing people's right to physical integrity to decide what they put in their body and what they don't want in their body.
Exactly.
I think that could be solved perhaps also with tax revolt, so that millions of people could unite via the internet and decide to stop paying taxes together, not by themselves, then they'd end up in jail. But if millions of people would do that, they cannot put them in jail, basically. And
Right, exactly.
because there are paid protesters, you have Protest on Demand and some other website that paid protesters and pays protesters to protest. So that fits in with their agenda, basically. I think that that's part of generating a crisis big enough to impose their satanic, Luciferian, totalitarian global government. And there are several people that have called out for global government, including prominent, even president, former President Bush, and others, Biden and Obama, etc. That video is also on one of my channels. I have another channel that's try-something.vegetarian. This broadcast will be uploaded to Perfect Society, and yeah, whatever. Are there things going on in Italy at the moment? Anything special?
Yeah, I guess I would say generally the direction is pretty positive. Like there are more vegans and vegetarians every year in Italy. People thought it would be impossible, but it's happening. I think the movement is getting pretty strong, and also probably people were pretty pessimistic about the political left, and but the political left is starting to wake up to Zionism, like you said, George Soros, and these kinds of people, controlling things, invading things, poisoning things, and so I see some positive trends in that regard in Italy. And I have to get going, so I will uh, I will give my warmest salutations to everybody who's listening.
Okay, I salute you back. I don't know if there are others in the chat at the moment on Skype. Let's check. I go back to Skype. I think that I want to be a bride of God. Maybe there. Well, thank you for this conversation. It was very nice to talk with a fellow vegetarian for a change. And I love all vegetarians. I think vegetarians are softer, nicer, more civilized people, also because of the hormones in the cancer hormone, cow meat, etc. That they are also smarter because it's scientifically proven. Humans are originally herbivorous, that's why our stomachs have more trouble digesting meat than plant-based foods. And there are many vegan foods that taste even better, I think, than meat. I used to eat meat as a child. My parents were not vegetarian, unfortunately. And you could argue it's not their fault because most people are meat eaters, cadaver eaters. But okay, can anybody still hear me? Is there anybody in the chat? Hello, hello? Big heart joined. Well, perhaps it's best if I just finish the broadcast right here. And I can upload this to YouTube. Because the risk is that if there are others in the chat that they say something in violation of the YouTube user policy, and to prevent that, I'll just make it a separate broadcast, and I can put some title on this with vegetarianism. So thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and see you next time on Perfect Society. Swinging.